Hey, welcome to the next segment of the Creative Roundup for 2017. So, in this segment, we're going to talk about my professional development and my professional slash creative development. And you'll notice that this entire section is divided into two parts: the professional creative development that I had in my personal creative uni, and the development that I had in my graduate school program. And so for this video, because this is the first video you guys are seeing, we're going to talk about my professional creative development in my creative uni. And the reason why I divided it up into two segments is because I realized that a lot of my professional creative uni and the creative uni are all the classes and courses that I am taking outside of a formal education system. So online web classes, master classes, paid courses, things like that, things of that nature, email drip courses, etc. All of those I'm taking outside of my core graduate school program that is occurring within my department and within the University of Arizona. And so we'll be talking about that and the successes I realized and the growth I realized in that area. But I just want to impress upon you guys my philosophy before I jump into it, that formal education, especially nowadays when education is so ridiculously expensive and overpriced, the ROI for going to a university and getting a simple bachelor's has plummeted significantly, because now we are paying more for our education than we can actually get back in working years when we're in the field working. The jobs that our government and our society claims are available are not available because there's too much competition and there are too many people with the same degrees competing for the same positions, and the number of positions are decreasing dramatically year by year. At least that's been my experience. That was everybody's experience during the Great Recession, which we're just now coming out of. I would not say our economy is booming, as people are trying to say in the media, but I would say that it is certainly improving. People can at least find a job if they spend like a year looking, I think. But by and large, those jobs are still coming out of places that deal with retail, that deal with minimum wage living, which is barely a living wage, and that deal with a huge number of people who are working these jobs who are essentially underemployed, where they're more qualified, way more qualified for better jobs, better pay, more fulfilling jobs, but they can't get those jobs because they're so competitive. So they work at jobs that are levels below their competency or not in their field of competency at all, and they're making basically just enough to live, and they're not using any of their degrees for anything. And I literally was just graduating from my undergraduate institution right when the recession hit. I mean, it was literally the worst time to be graduating ever. And at that point, I had been preparing to go to a PhD program, and I was already into the University of Wisconsin sociology PhD program, fully funded. So I was actually very, very fortunate that I had acquired at least some semblance of a position somewhere for the next foreseeable future. And that was very helpful for me, even though it wasn't something I had realized at the last minute I was super passionate about. I was lucky enough to have a working living wage, health insurance, in my opinion, one of the best states to have that have like a great health system. Like literally the Wisconsin state health system is second to none. And I can say that just from my experience in it. Affordable housing where I can get like a 2-bedroom for under $800 a month. I had a lot of scholarships and everything like that. Yet and still, and this is not me complaining, me and my training in my formal education path diverged significantly from the creative training I really truly desired, which is craft training in the arts, online entrepreneurship training, learning how to create a podcast and learning how to be a great blogger. And so this is why I have made a distinct division between my personal creative university versus my graduate school or formal education. So that's just a preamble to let you know what this video is about. And if you actually look in the notes, the video notes section below, you'll actually be able to see a comprehensive list of all the classes that I took this year for my personal creative uni. And actually I need to update it because I've been taking more classes since I posted this rather. And so you can see my personal creative uni actually has like a variety of different quote tracks. And I do like to take different tracks. So this year, I actually participated in a lot of productivity courses, and I'm just reading right off of the list here. Financial management courses and personal finance courses, which have been a huge part of my growth and development outside of graduate school this year and just personally. And I'll get into that in just a minute. Creative entrepreneurship courses. So for example, how to go full-time as an indie author. Writing courses and writing craft courses. So, for example, I took James Patterson's writing masterclass, which is a great class. I feel like it was sort of basic. I wouldn't say basic in a bad way, but if you're just starting out as a writer, it's a perfect class for you. If you're an intermediate writer or a more advanced writer, it's still great to take the class because it's great to go over the basics. But the biggest thing I got from that class was his outlining method, which I now use basically for all of my works. And it's a brilliant method that I hadn't really had before. Excuse me, that's not to say that I don't plan my books. I do, but I do it in a very particular way. I plan out the log line, the character arcs and development, the 4 acts, the 8 sequences, and, then scenes within each sequence leading to the grand finale and denouement. But then James Patterson introduced his chapter outlining method where you basically write in like a simple, straightforward, tight paragraph for each chapter what is going on, because then that helps you to synthesize all the events in your novel. And it's just a really wonderful tool that I've been able to add into my toolbox. So that was a great class to take. I also took quite a few filmmaking and directing courses this year. One major course that had a huge impact on me that I just loved, and I'm not even all the way through it, is the master course in high-end blocking and staging that was offered and still is offered at Hollywood Camera Work. And that was an incredible course, and I am very much looking forward to finishing out that course. Hollywood Camera Work in general has an amazing swath of incredible courses dealing with not just blocking and staging, but also an entire directing course, which is incredible. I basically previewed some of the lessons of that particular course, and it just was mind-blowing. It has a visual effects course for directors, producers, creative designers. Like these are all skills you can take and use as an independent filmmaker to make really high-end, high-level films at like a very low budget. So that entire school is giving me my entire life. And then I took an amazing signature course with Gil Bettman and Alex Ferrari from the Indie Film Hustle podcast. And that course was called the Hollywood Film and Television Directing Masterclass, which was great because it doesn't tell you like specifically how to work with actors, but it does give you a whole lot of information about how to shoot action scenes, chase scenes, how to production design your scenes so that it can provide the most dynamism, the most movement, the most energy. And it's an amazing course. I took notes all throughout the course. I gave it 5-star reviews, and I even told Alex himself through the reviews that this is really one of the most impactful courses I've ever taken, and thank you so much. And they're not charging enough for that course, but I got in at a very reasonable price. And that really blew my mind this year. amongst other courses, but I'm just picking out a few from each category, from each track. I took some selling courses because it's always important to get your marketing and selling down pat. Craft is important, but so is knowing how to market and sell your work. So I took How to Monetize a Small List in 12 Weeks with Joseph Michael, and 18 Secrets to an Author Platform that Converts Visitors into Buyers Masterclass. That was a really good masterclass, again, by Alinka Rukovska. If you've been going through all my videos, you might have heard her name once or twice. She is really amazing at book marketing and book selling, so I really enjoyed taking classes from her, amongst others. And then I also did, of course, a bunch of marketing courses. So there is an amazing, I took a lot of amazing courses this year for marketing. But the biggest thing that I learned was, I guess the most impactful lessons I learned came from this course, this free online YouTube course by Seed and Spark. That's SEED ampersand SPARK. Just go to YouTube and look them up, and they have an entire online course called Crowdfunding to Build Independence. And their crowdfunding platform is geared specifically towards filmmakers who are making independent films. And the way that they do crowdfunding is not through just money not just through financial fundraising, but it's also through crowdsourcing. So they give options on their platform for your potential donors to give not only dollars, but a space. Let's say that, your super fans don't have any money to give you, but they have a really wonderful, living room space for you to shoot your movie in or something. That is people offering locations, props, themselves as PAs just because they want to be in on the process for free. Those things are invaluable to a filmmaker, I swear to you. And so I just love this crowdfunding platform. I definitely plan on using it when it comes time to raise money and support for Sandman, which is my own film that I'm in process of writing and directing. And that marketing course really just gave me my entire life. I really loved it. So yes. So those are just a few selected courses that I took for this particular year. In total, and let me just kind of pull up this in front, because I kind of feel like when I'm reading off the page, I sort of look like a zombie, and I don't want to look like that. I want to be looking at you guys because you guys are so wonderful. So for this year, I completed a total of 20 master classes, which for me are one-off classes that last anywhere between 45 minutes to up to 3 hours. Those are master classes. I finished 21 of those for this year. And then I did 17 major creative signature courses. For me, a signature course counts as a course that has multiple classes and multiple modules. So I did 17 of those. So, that's a lot, basically, to do 21 masterclass workshops and then 17 courses. That's basically me overloading my semesters in graduate school. If these were actual courses and I were taking each class in the course week by week, that means I would have been taking over the course of these 3 semesters, spring, summer, and fall, basically a total of nearly 6 classes per semester all at once. That's what that works out to. And this is in addition to my graduate school coursework. So I'm impressed. If you're not, I don't know what to tell you. But I also read, I believe, 1 or 2 books dealing with skills and things outside of graduate school. And one of those books was The Author Mindset by Joanna Penn. I love her series of nonfiction books that come out of the Creative Pen. You guys should definitely check them out. I just got a notification today, as a matter of fact, today being December 28th, 2017, that her Healthy Writer and Healthy Writer Mindset book that she co-authored with a doctor is now officially released. I actually just got billed for it because I pre-ordered it earlier in the year, and I'm looking forward to reading that for 2018. So I do drop in, excuse me, books that I try to get done and I try to get read for the year, as well as countless blog posts, articles, newsletters from people who are doing what I want to do. So, and the blogs and newsletters and also the countless podcasts that I listen to, basically, I can't really count them up, but I will list them here. And I did follow, just FYI, if you're looking to create your own personal creative uni, I will be talking about that on the Be Badass podcast, about how to basically put together your own personal syllabus, depending on what kind of skills you want to gain, and how to pace yourself and get yourself through your courses and complete your courses fully, how to incentivize yourself to finish the homework assignments, etc., etc. I will be giving you an entire sort of protocol on how to do that on the Be Badass podcast. And a part of that protocol is to make sure you're constantly learning and supplementing your life with podcasts. And the podcasts that I supplemented my life, and I actually don't have them listed here, so I'm going to have to think off the top of my head. Definitely the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, though I haven't listened to that one in a minute. The Creative Pen podcast is my number one publishing podcast for writing, publishing, and marketing and selling books. That's, again, Joanna Penn. She's amazing. She's one of the best and most well-known self-publishers and marketers in the industry. And not only does she not only does she do and focus on publishing in the current, but she also is very much a futurist and looks into the future. So the Creative Pen podcast, the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast, the Sell More Books show, I really love. The Book Launch podcast by Tim Grohl, which is updated once in a blue moon, but he provides you with evergreen information. So as far as I'm concerned, he could never update the podcast again, and I would still send everybody to it, because he will give you a really wonderful foundation as to how to strengthen your book launch and to how to position that book launch depending on what kind of list you have, which I find very helpful and valuable. The Sci-Fi and Fantasy Marketing podcast, hosted by Lindsay Baroker, Joe Lalo, and Jeffrey Poole. I wanted to make sure I got those names right. Amazing podcast, updated on Wednesday every single week, and I love it. It's great, and I get lots of great information, and I also get introduced to countless authors and their works, which I really love. The Indie Film Hustle podcast, don't want to forget that one. And also I believe Brubaker, I don't know his first name, Brubaker's Filmmaking Stuff podcast. I believe he has a podcast that's a weekly podcast. And he also has an amazing blog on independent filmmaking. So those two, the Indie Film Hustle podcast and the Filmmaking Stuff podcast, if I even got that name right. Also, and some more screenwriting podcasts. I'm just going to look on my my podcast list here. The Side Hustle Show is also a really great place to be for just creative people who just want to have high side hustles. I don't listen to that one as much, but I should. You can only listen to really so many at a time. The Children of Tandu, which these are two guys who are dead not dead like deceased, but dead smack in the middle of the industry as TV writers and showrunners. And so they give you all the advice that you need if you want to break into mainstream Hollywood. Great thing to listen to. Also, the On the Page podcast is an amazing podcast to check out, because this gives you a very wonderful look into the craft of screenwriting, basically how to get your words on the page. I love Pilar Alessandra. I love what she does at her blog, at her On the Page podcast, and I love her book, which is The Coffee Break Screenwriter. I just love it. She has really helped me to hone my craft and my skills significantly, and it's a great she serves as a great introduction to the industry. And I believe that you can use all the principles and things she goes over in her podcast, even if you're going to be an indie filmmaker like me. But if you also want to break into the industry, it's the perfect podcast to go to in terms of learning a craft and listening to screenwriting experiences, and also just feeling hope that's just that with a lot of hard work and some really great networking, you can actually break into the industry. So that's my short list. Of course, let me add one more. Happy Black Woman podcast. Amazing podcast for just the empowerment empowerment and for inspiration that Black women, whether they're creative or not, don't get as often in mainstream media or in mainstream conversations. She basically teaches you how to be happy, how to claim your power, how to live the life that you personally want to lead. And that is always something that, I roll with really hard on a weekly basis, or as often as she'll post it. So Happy Black Woman podcast. And then, of course, not saying that my podcast is the go-to for anything, but one major source of inspiration for me personally has been my own podcast, The Epic Fantastical Journey of a Black Female Sci-Fi Writer. I find inspiration in going back and looking at how far I've come. I find inspiration in being able to listen to a podcast and actually say to myself, wow, that's actually really great, Colby, what you just said, or that's really wise, or that was a really important, hard lesson. And it just feels good to articulate those things myself, and then to be able to go back and use myself as a source of inspiration and as a source of encouragement. That's really the most powerful place you could ever be, because you can't depend on everybody else around you all the time to know what you're going through, to understand what you're trying to do, or to even support you in what you're trying to do. And if you can go back into yourself in any way, shape, or form and find inspiration, to me, that's definitely a success. So I put my podcast at the end of that because I have definitely gone back to certain weeks throughout this whole year and just have drawn inspiration and strength from places wherein I can admit my failures, places wherein I have grown, and definitely the successes that I have achieved. So those are the courses and the things that I actually did this year, in addition to creating a very specialized track that I want to take over the summer that I call the Summer Film and TV Institute, which basically has all of the courses that I need for screenwriting, TV writing, directing, film producing, marketing, selling, and distributing my film. And so all of those classes are on a syllabus for me for this coming summer in 2018, which I'm super excited about. I also have a large collection of scripts that I want to read through and analyze as a part of that Summer Film Institute. I really believe I could be an education administrator and a teacher, which is why I opened the Bohemian Badass and the Be Badass podcast, as well as the Bohemian Badass School for Creatives, because I do have an eye for being able to put together curricula and, really have high standards for the outcomes of those curricula. So I did put that together. I was supposed to actually do that in 2017, but I actually just ended up working on, like a demon, basically, my novels all day and all night. So while I didn't do the Summer Film and Screenwriting Institute the way that I wanted to, I did get a lot of novel writing done. So I essentially did the novel writing track of my personal creative uni, and I made a lot of headway on a lot of different prose projects, and that was important to me, super important. Okay, I'm going to end this relatively long segment with just an overview of the things that I learned in each area. So we have directing and filmmaking, marketing, professional opportunities, and I have a major announcement for this one. Film editing, novel writing, screenwriting, tech and virtual reality, musical theater, as well as regular theater, and then marketing. Because I took all these classes, did all these podcasts, listened to them rather, and did all the studying, but then what did I come away with in terms of my final skills, right? What did I actually learn? So directing and filmmaking, I did learn quite a bit about directing for the stage and for film this year, both within my grad school track, but also outside of it. I definitely had a major education in devising, and that actually came more from my grad school track. So we'll get into that in the next video. Blocking, staging, developing actor performances, developing actor relationships, not just between myself and the actors, but between each other. That's important. I learned to start using my camera for my production house, which is the Canon Rebel T6i. So that was exciting. And by basically shooting our first short film with me and a colleague, I basically learned what lenses to put on for what particular shots, because I was trying to figure it out in real time. And so by the end of the day, I actually had a very intuitive knowledge of which lens to use for what kind of shot. And it was great. I loved it. So I would say like a 5-hour crash course in DPing just by being forced to use the camera in real time. And that's great. And so I was able to mesh up a lot of my abstract knowledge about DPing and cinematography with the, in the field knowledge. And that was really helpful. Having said that, we did shoot our first short film home, which was then unfortunately suspended by my partner who had written it. But I did learn a lot from that project, as I just mentioned, not only the cinematography aspect of it, but also she wrote the script and then we had to break it down. We had to figure out locations and props and things like that. So having that small film project basically go from 2016 to the beginning of 2017 really helped to train me in a very preliminary way on how to be a director and film producer. And so I used those skills and developed those skills more this year in all different aspects and I expanded on those by looking into developing, again, actor performances, looking into staging and blocking and whatnot. Marketing. I also learned a lot about launch sequences, automations, basically how to recruit an ARC team, how to recruit a review team, what incentives to use to help people feel more, let's say, excited about leaving reviews. I also just learned a lot about what moves and motivates readers, quantity versus quality, etc., etc. And I hope to keep building on those lessons in the future. I would say, and I don't want to get into this too much in this video because New Adult Noir has its own separate video. New Adult Noir as a whole taught me a crap load about book marketing and about book selling. Also, it taught me about how to host a successful giveaway, or rather, in my case, a series of successful giveaways, which ended with like a massive, most amazing giveaway that has recruited now over 82,400 new readers. And that's not an exaggeration. Those are just the numbers. And so obviously marketing had was a huge area for me this year, excuse me. Let's talk about the professional opportunities that I had this year. And even though I didn't have as much time to apply for outside fellowships, scholarships, opportunities, I had to shelve most of those for this coming year, 2018. I did end up winning one filmmaking scholarship, and I actually ended up meeting the donor and going to a luncheon to meet her. And she essentially, because she was the donor for that particular scholarship, which was about $750, I will be listing her as one of our producers on the film Sandman, because her contribution definitely helped us to do a lot, getting equipment, hiring a creative producer who's going to make the script even better. And so that was really great, essentially getting a filmmaking scholarship and essentially getting our first producer, which was a big deal for me personally, being a brand new filmmaker. Then here comes the big announcement. And I was hinting at this major opportunity all throughout 2017 because I wasn't sure if I should talk about it. And I just had no idea like where I was in the process. But You guys are not going to believe this, but I got recruited, or I got scouted rather, for a reality TV show dealing with I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be called, but basically they are trying to put together a show. This particular casting house and this production house is putting together a show dealing with normal people essentially being amateur sleuths and looking into either really bloody or supernatural experiences that have occurred at certain properties, right? Abandoned or otherwise. So, for example, if there is like a house in my town where there was a really bloody unsolved murder, it would be my job and opportunity to go around the community as like an amateur sleuth and find out from people basically what they know or what they've heard about the murder, right? And what the what the lore is surrounding the murder. And the reason that the casting house believed that this show was going to be popular is that typically when you're dealing with real estate, if something really horrible has happened at or on a particular property, that significantly brings down the value of the property. So real estate agents are very keen on not letting those little unfortunate bloody truths out into the public. So basically, not only is it a fun kind of figuring out who done it, it's not only like a who done it, how done it kind of show, but it's also, hey, we're exposing the fact that you weren't really upfront about this terrible murder that happened here when you were selling this house. We also, I believe, would have the opportunity to talk to local law enforcement and look into like cold cases and things like that. And just also follow up again on many urban legends. And it was crazy because they contacted me in early February and pitched she found me through my blog, which if you guys think that having an author blog is completely useless and you don't know what the point is so that you have more visibility. So when they type in Black female sci-fi writer or Black horror writer or just indie sci-fi, indie horror writers or whatever, your blog, your podcast, your website will come up and you could be available for these kind of opportunities. So it really taught me to really stay on top of my game. But one of the casting associates contacted me and said, looking at your website and your work and what you do and what your brand is, I think you would be a great person to be on this show, to be one of the hosts of the show. And it also is an opportunity for me to not only just like, I guess, be on television doing cool stuff like sleuthing, but it's also a great opportunity for me to expand my platform like significantly. And this particular reality television show is being produced to major broadcast networks, a very small collection of them. And I'm not going to tell you which ones they are or even like what area they're in because I don't want to reveal too much that isn't public already. But basically the reach would be huge, basically. And so for me, this was a major, major breakthrough moment for me. Even if I don't get cast, even if it doesn't get picked up, it just underscored for me the importance of staying true to myself, staying true to my brands, being on top of my game, being consistent, and, exploring the things that I am truly, truly excited about. So since then, I've sort of naturally branched out into things, into just exploring more the dark, the gritty, and the bloody. And actually, I do want to expand the space on my website for 2018 called Fable Hunter, because I want to look into more of these kinds of mysteries and not just like bloody unsolved mysteries, because those are interesting and I do really enjoy crime and stuff, not in real life, but like I enjoy like crime novels. I enjoy just learning more about detective work, and cold cases really do fascinate me. They really do. I guess it's just the dark side of me. Joanna Penn understands. And those of you who write dark and gritty stuff and bloody stuff understand where I'm coming from. But those things really excite me and really intrigue me. However, I also am really intrigued with legends and fables and mythology and things like that. And I just have been for, the past couple of years so eager to have a Fable Hunter podcast or like a Fable Hunter section on my website that just delves in once a week in just deeply into like an unsolved case, or delves into, an urban legend or a myth, from things that are well known, like the city of Atlantis, to other things that are not as well known, like the books of Colburn, for example, So things that are dealing in that sort of realm, I really do want to focus on for 2018 if I can. There's a lot going on next year. But that was my major professional opportunity, and it was an amazing opportunity. And I just, I was just floored and also very humbled and flattered that they would even consider me for an opportunity. And, that's now almost a year ago. But they said that the development process, the pitching process, would probably take quite a bit of time. So I'm not really tripping over it. And if I don't get picked, I just don't get picked. But it was still a great thing to be not cast, but to be recruited, to be scouted. Excuse me. They also interviewed me. So they're going to cut and paste from not cut and paste, they're going to edit my interview to kind of like elevate who I am as a person. I don't know what kind of personality they're going to create from me. Hopefully it's going to be like a nice one. You know how reality TV goes. They put you out there as like this person that you might not necessarily be. So we'll see. But I will definitely keep you guys in the loop if developments occur with that. Okay, so let's get through the rest of this pretty quickly because it's going on like almost 40 minutes now. Film editing. I got the insane film editing experience, not only in my personal creative uni, but also in my graduate school experience. So I'm just going to put it all in one. In total, I edited 6 short films / scenes this year, which was crazy. Starting with my pre-show for the production I was dramaturging called Creeps. I did a reality show, which is so funny because the production I had worked on earlier this year, at the same time I got contacted by that reality TV house, was Creeps is a show that is about reality television. It was just crazy. It's like a crazy coincidence of experiences. But I put together a reality TV show pre-show for the production I was working on. I also worked on a short scene for my film editing class, a couple more short scenes for a short film called Sucker Punch. Then I actually did a montage for this documentary called Precious Knowledge. It won't go into the documentary, obviously, but that was just a class project. But I was really proud of my montage editing. It's not easy. It seems like it's easy, but it's not. And then I finished out the year in that class by doing an entire short film called Lolo, of which I am super proud. And then I topped that off because I was the only graduate student in the entire film editing class. I had to do an extra project to basically get credit for the class. And I edited together an action scene from this course called Film Editing Pro. So I had to take an entire separate course and then do their final project, which was an action scene. And it was just wonderful. All of this experience that I had in editing this year really makes me feel confident enough and competent enough to build on my skills from here on in. And I just got such a wonderful, well-rounded education in my editing classes. Those 2 classes together were perfect. I not only learned basic technical editing techniques, but I also just learned editing concepts. I learned about how to analyze a particular edited scene and really dig into the scene to see what the choices were by the editor, what the editing choices were. And then we also just learned about a whole bunch of different kinds of editing, like documentary editing, montage editing versus narrative editing. We also learned about coloring. And I think that if I were to ever like market myself in the field or build myself more in a commercial way, I would definitely be a colorist because I really enjoyed being a colorist in that part of the class. We learned about effects editing, audio and sound editing, and then the action scene class definitely taught me a lot about Foley editing. Now, I only got through half of the class. That Film Editing Pro class was called The Art of Action Editing, and I literally got through 52% of the class. And that was enough for me to do a basic edit of their final project, but I still need to finish the rest of the class where they take the basic concepts and they build on them even more and make you a better editor. So for 2018, I'll be doing what is called the Art of Action Editing Class 2.0, where I'll be taking my original work, duplicating it, finishing out the rest of the class, and then honing my action scene based on the concepts we're learning in that second half of the class, or that I'm learning rather, in that second half of the class. So that's what's ahead for 2018. It was awesome. I told you guys about my novel writing adventures this year. Did a lot of that throughout the year, especially in the summer. Learned about outlining, and I definitely also did a lot of world building. And I even actually put together, for my own personal use, and eventually I will be selling this commercially, but I put together a world building template that I pretty much use for any new epic world that I am putting together. And it's not completed, but it is a really basic, nice template. And I look forward to building on that even more. So a lot of educational things have come out of that I can then monetize, which is awesome. I learned a hell of a lot. Moving to the next section, screenwriting. I took an entire horror screenwriting and scriptwriting class this year, and I definitely built out the ultimate horror script writing template and the ultimate survival horror novel writing template, which literally is giving me my entire life. That class was amazing. It really was just incredible. And it really helped me to develop tools for myself and a template for myself so that I can essentially build a really strong, fast-paced, terrifying story. And unfortunately, I can't sell those or commercialize those templates because they're based on somebody else's intellectual property. So I can only have my templates for personal use, unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys. I also made some very deep and interesting discoveries about how to do better research by taking Aaron Sorkin's class, which I'll be finishing up this week, alongside Shonda Rhimes' class, which I won't be finishing until 2018. So I'll talk about that later. But Aaron Sorkin and Shonda Rhimes have one major thing in two major things in common. One, they're both geniuses. And two, they have a very serious, very in-depth and hands-on approach to their research. And I don't mean just going online and spending hours on the internet and getting articles and reading books and stuff like that. I mean, literally going to the library, scanning, photocopying, and most importantly, sitting down and interviewing actual people, talking to actual people who inhabit the worlds that they are trying to write in. I don't think there's a single script, according to Aaron Sorkin, that he's written without having done at least one or a few interviews for. Same thing with Shonda Rhimes, especially with her dealing with, real life people and real life experiences. With Grey's Anatomy, she's dealing with a bunch of surgery residents. With Scandal, she's dealing with a bunch of political fixers and power players. And then with Private Practice, she was dealing with a bunch of psychologists. And for each one of those series, she sat down with the people who live and breathe this work in real time and got real information. And so it really, really encourages me to up my game, and it gave me a new perspective on research, that as much as I love online research and it's super valuable, I do want to at some point be able to sit down with actual professionals and just get that story, get those tidbits from people. Because if the professionals and the geniuses in this field are doing it, then I definitely need to be doing that too. And then I also started doing a lot of pilot and script analysis by using pilot and script breakdowns, which have been very educational for me in the screenwriting capacity. I also learned quite a bit about tech and virtual reality because I went to an actual virtual reality summit. I believe this was like towards the end of the summer. And it was great. I mean, I got to know some of the technologies that were emerging and that were also currently dominating the market. But then I also was able to develop a more intimate relationship with what we're doing with VR and AR on campus, which is great. So, I really wanted to help both the theater departments and the film department. Oh, actually, we're all one department, but the School of Theater, Film, and Television, I really want to work on for 2018, getting them an actual green space where they can do virtual reality projects for filmmaking, for theater. I think it's a great way to sort of expand our horizons, but we weren't able to get that done for this year. But for 2018, I'm still thinking about it. Then I had a very interesting, sort of unexpected education in musical theater and regular theater. Well, I don't like calling it regular theater, but I don't know what else to call it. Traditional theater. Now, being that I'm a graduate student in a theater arts program, having an education in traditional theater is not so unexpected. But what was unexpected was the amount that I learned by dramaturging an actual musical this year, where I was able to really dig into the books, the lyrics, and the score, as well as like how they did stage management, how they did rehearsals, how they did performances. And it really helped me to get sort of at least a basic idea of how a musical is done from beginning to end. And I really wanted to expand on that knowledge by learning not just about the production of a musical in like the studio or on stage, but the creation of a musical at the book level, the lyrics level, and the score level. I will never probably ever be a music writer, but I think I could do some pretty decent lyrics, and I know I can write the book, or rather the script for the actual musical itself. If you guys don't know what the book of a musical is, those are basically all the non-singing story narrative parts. I know I can definitely do that, and then maybe I can just partner with people who are obviously more, in tune with doing lyrics and scoring and stuff like that. But it really did kick off what was already a latent interest in doing musical theater. And through my graduate program and being exposed more to actually myself creating sort of like a mini crappy musical for one of our presentations, it really ignited this passion in me. And I also realized that musical theater, and I've always loved musical theater, I've just never tried to write it or produce it. But I feel as though it's an integral, like the basic parts and facets of musical theater are very much a part of my culture as an African American woman, like the dance, the movement, the bodies in space, the singing, the rhythm, the lyricism, the rhyme, all of those things. Just having an experience that's magical and mystical on stage, and that's also very much in the body, I think is very uniquely African American. I'm not saying that musicals only belong to Black people, don't get that impression, but I feel as though our culture, which is not completely all about dance and music, obviously we can do other things clearly, but a lot of just the way that we speak very lyrically, we're very exuberant and emotional, we're very in the body, we're very expressive. I think a lot of what's already in our culture across the diaspora sort of naturally lends itself to musical theater in a lot of ways. And again, I don't say this in like an oppressive way. I'm not trying to say that we need to be on stage tap dancing for massa, not saying that, but I just really realized how much I wanted musical theater to be a part of what I see as a growing Black tradition in theater. Like I wanted to be a part of the Black aesthetic in the Black theater tradition, basically is what I'm trying to say. I also learned about rights acquisition this year because I had to try to pursue the rights for the Roald Dahl piece we were doing. That failed, but I still learned about the process. And then I developed a lot of other stage play concepts, some of them musical, some of them just straight traditional stage plays, but all still very much steeped in the Black theater tradition in some way or form. And that was very educational and really just impactful for me. And then for marketing, finally bringing this home, I learned a lot about Facebook business, pixels, traffic and tracking one's audience. I also explored Instagram marketing a little bit, like more so the educational side, learning more about that. And then, of course, I started learning more about foreign rights. So these are all the things that I learned this year through my personal creative uni. And it's pretty much a miracle that I'm still standing with all the knowledge and information. I feel like I should be like Brain from Pinky and the Brain with this big bulbous head, because I have all of these thoughts and ideas and this new information, and now I have to turn it into actual craft and action. And that's the hardest part. But it was a really a wonderful gangbuster year for my personal creative uni. I'm looking forward to some serious growth in 2018. And one of the biggest areas of growth, in my personal opinion, which I will be developing more in 2018, has been my growth in personal finance and wealth building. I have learned everything from, building credit to investing in stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency. That was a huge thing this year, and I'm still developing my knowledge on that. Learning more about real estate, learning more about net worth, learning more about, and then most importantly, asset protection through insurance, through estate planning, through creating a will. Like, these are all things that we should all be concerned about generally, but especially artists, because I am so fighting against the idea of starving artists. It's not even funny. I just don't believe in it. I believe that art is supposed to be as integral to our world as money, as food, as water, as air, as math, and as science. Like, it's just as important as all those other things, because you can't, in my personal opinion, have a civilization that is truly advanced in technology, in financial acquisition, and just physically, without also cultivating and nurturing the soul. And that is what the arts does. It helps us to express, who we are, how we feel. It helps us to evolve spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, socially, on all different levels, because it allows each of us a very special mode of expression. And it allows each of us to elevate others' understanding and interpretation of the world. And you cannot have, in my personal opinion, a true civilization without the artist. And the fact that we are the only ones who are expected to starve, we're the ones who are essentially helping to maintain the soul of our societies, I think is ridiculous. I feel like we're just as important. I feel as though we also deserve to have a stable, self-sustaining life. And I also believe that artists can also build wealth. I mean, maybe you'll never be the next Bill Gates as an artist, but you can certainly retire as a millionaire if you wanted to, by making smart decisions and doing other things that enhance your life alongside your artistry. So that has been a major revelation for me this year, and I have restructured my entire life and all my goals around some of these principles. And wealth building for artists is certainly something I want to explore and develop more, not just for myself, but so that I can teach other people who are artists, no matter what kind of artist they are, that they can live off of their art and sustain themselves off their art with a lot of smart decisions and with a lot of discipline, and by knowing how people build wealth outside of their industries. Okay, so we'll talk more about that in the future. And so if you're not really about wealth building, or you think it's sleazy or whatever, then again, I submit to you that you need to find someone who is stable enough to support your art, or you need to still just be willing to work your full-time job that pays the bills until your art takes off and makes you self-sustainable. or you just need to hit the lotto. Like, you need to kind of decide how you're going to support yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you make some smart decisions, if you make the right investments, if you are patient and you educate yourself and you look at what people are doing and emulate what the successful investors and successful savers are doing to create passive streams of income, you can literally have all of your other assets in the world making money for you, providing a nest egg for you, providing your day-to-day needs for you, so that you are free every day to engage in your art as much as you want. And that's really the point of building wealth and to build capital, is to give yourself freedom and to give yourself some level of security along with that of your family. And hopefully, if you think for the long term and you're thinking about the longevity and the legacy of yourself and your art, you're thinking towards what your money is going to do for your family and your legacy after you are gone. So these are all things we're definitely going to get into more in 2018. And aside from all the craft courses and the artistic things that I learned, wealth building was literally the biggest, most life-changing lesson that I got this year, all throughout the year. And I highly suggest that you guys add those aspects of your learning to your personal creative uni, because we're not just our art. We do have to survive in this world that is increasingly capitalist the world over. And, we need to be true to ourselves, but also be aware of reality and what's happening in reality and how we need to protect and insulate ourselves from the things that are happening. So with that, I leave you. This was a lot longer than I planned for it to be. I am sorry, but I will see you in the next segment dealing with my personal, professional, and creative development inside of graduate school, specifically as a theater arts professional and as a growing theater artist. So check me out in the next video. Bye.